He'll be able to identify who did it.
So why don't you tell us a little bit more, Ryan?
Yeah, and usually it's Dad, honestly.
At 11, I got my Uncle Dan coming in at 11:30 with his big old truck.
Dad will talk a little bit more about
I'm wound up.
Oh wait,
Football's back.
oh! Iron sharpens iron.
Yep.
And
look what I did. 3, 2, 1. Guys, welcome back to the What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MacCast, episode 7, I believe.
7.
Okay, we're hoping everybody had a nice warm holidays with your families. I know we did. We had our nice Christmas breakfast, our annual Christmas breakfast at the Masonic Lodge. We had some family time over the break, and then New Year's. We're pretty excited what 2025 is going to bring. Definitely for the podcast, but for our families too. I think we're pretty excited about what the year holds. And we were definitely excited. I'm sure our fans probably know that we're excited about the Buckeyes. I think right off the rip, they came out and really made a statement to the nation last week against Tennessee. Was it last week?
It was like a week and a half.
Week and a half ago against Tennessee, and then of course the performance against Oregon. So let's just dive right into that, Ryan. What's your thoughts on that Ohio State-Oregon game?
It was definitely a statement, I thought.
Yeah.
I mean, if you listen to Dan Lannon's post game, he was talking about, we've talked about it all year. Smith, he's an NFL ready kid at 18 years old, and
can't stop.
And he's like, yeah, you can't stop him. There was no way. Dad and I were watching it there when I went over, and he literally worded it in his mouth in the signs. We can't stop him.
Can't stop.
After he scored that second touchdown, it's like, what? We can't throw any defense out.
And that was, I mean, you couldn't cover him any better than what that guy was. It was just where the ball was placed and his athletic ability. They said his hand size. It's just astronomical.
He's 6'3",
right?
6'3", 225.
Mm-hmm.
And they're comparing him to
Calvin Johnson. No, not Calvin Johnson, sorry. Yeah, Megatron.
Yeah.
And
Julio
Jones.
I've heard that a lot. They compare it to Julio
because
Jones.
he's got that big body frame.
The structure.
And he's athletic.
He's just unguardable. Just can't. He can be. Somebody could be on him like glue, and he's still open. You know what I mean? He's still open.
Yeah. I mean, that showed there was definitely a mismatch. I think.
Describe the catch that Ibuka had.
Oh, the Buckeyes was more. I think Howard put it right in his bread box.
He did, but he juggled it. It bounced off of him, and he had it bounced around in his hand, and then he got control of it right as he went into the end zone.
Yeah,
that was
that's good. Yeah, a play by him.
Yeah,
I thought
even Travion Henderson, man.
What my point, I guess, is your average receiver.
They have some.
It's probably not hanging on to it.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, Jeremiah Smith is playing lights out, and I think that it's hard to game scheme against because then. If you're gonna focus in on him and shutting him down, then you're leaving open some people. And Travion Henderson in this last game, I think, really showed some explosiveness that we kind of were expecting throughout the season. And I just don't see it's an offense. It's going to be a great matchup against Texas, right? Because Texas defense is
that's their strength.
Their strength. But I think it's going to come down to DB strength. I think it's going to come down a little bit more individual. If they can shut down the passing game of Ohio State and force them to be running. I don't know much about Texas's DBs, though. Do you know anything about them?
I mean, after watching
they have like the number one, though.
After watching Arizona State, I mean, yeah, they ran the ball over, but with a better passing game, I think they would have probably did pretty well. So I think Ohio State won't have a problem.
Okay. Well, I mean, that'll be the ultimate test. That there's some Texas is.
Look, they might have the number one defensive back in the country.
Yeah.
Texas, but we got the number one receiver
in
the country. So it's one best against best. Who do you think's going to win? The offense knows where they're going. Defense does not. So I think the edge goes to the offense. Yeah. So I'm not too concerned.
A lot of the analysts are saying. They would not be surprised if Ohio State didn't win it, but they also keep down them. Like they can't keep up this roll of blowing out teams. They blew out Tennessee, blew out Oregon. Now they're saying they're not going to blow out Texas. So they're once again throwing fire at.
Urban Meyer said this. Did you see that?
I didn't
the
see
post game stuff. Urban Meyer said after the game He said, if Team A, which is the team that played today, shows up against Texas, not a chance.
Won't be a game.
They're gonna win the national championship. He said, if that's the way they play here on out. So if Team B shows up, he said, then we're gonna get what we got against Michigan.
Yeah. Well, and that's yeah.
So that's the reason I'm saying that is you said that everybody's has that doubt.
Down a little bit about
That's where it's coming from is the Michigan game.
Yeah.
But I'd put that in the past. You just saw Ohio State two games, a different team.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's keeping you from thinking that's not going to be the same team against Texas?
Yeah. I think another thing that sticks out is the Hogs up front.
They're doing good.
I think the offensive line and the defensive line, especially these last two games, have been performing lights out. I think Larry Johnson has done a great job of getting them ready to go. I think the rotation of the defensive line looked promising against Oregon, the way they were rotating in and out. Now, obviously, the score helps with that too, but I think he did a good job of keeping guys fresh. If they dominate the line of scrimmage, then I think you'll see a domination in the score. However, Texas, I don't think they're going to be able to dominate the line of scrimmage quite as much as they did against Oregon and Tennessee. I think they're going to have a little bit more trouble, which
On the offensive side? Of Ohio
correct
State?
on the offensive
Yeah, I
side,
agree.
which because then you can have a talented Jeremiah Smith, you can have a talented Trayvon Henderson, but without the guys up front communicating and blocking the way they need to and sustaining blocks, giving Howard the time to throw the ball, also making the holes that they made. Now Oregon's game, I thought they did some great eye candy stuff. Like they did that GT counter. Their first touchdown was it looked like a GT counter, and then they threw it off to Jeremiah Smith. They put Jeremiah Smith in motion, and he came off that edge, and boom. Then they came back with that GT counter, and I think Trayvon Henderson scored off of that later on in the game. So I think that as long as they keep that defense on their toes, like they did against Oregon, because you teach guys read your guards, read your keys, read your guy, and if you can influence a defense like that, that'll be keys to success with Texas, I think.
I think what Ohio State really did a good job on the Oregon game was getting that defense confused of where Smith was going to be, how to defend him. They were worried about him killing them. Like he was started off the bat, so now that you have to worry about that guy making whatever he wants to happen. That kind of makes your defense go probably from being more of a let's keep it all in the tackles in front of us to okay, we got to play further back because he's going to kill us.
Yeah. Well, and they also they do a lot of motions.
Open up the running game if they do that.
Yeah, and that's where Chip Kelly's.
So it's
Bravo
a feast or
Chip Kelly,
famine.
his offensive call in the last two games has been.
I have
It's been. But
I have a question for both of you. What do you think is the major factor of why the Buckeyes turned it around and playing as dominant as they're playing from the Michigan game on? What was the factor?
I think they had a kind of a.
Sour taste in the mouth.
Well, of course, they had a point to prove.
Chip on their shoulder?
For sure, they had a chip on their shoulder. But any team would, after a loss like that, and a national embarrassment, I think. But Michigan bailed us out in the bowl game though too. They
made us look better.
They made us look a little bit better. However, I think you take a team that is on paper the best football program in college football as far as what money can buy, and you have a semi amusing season, but nothing like. Remember, they had terrible first half starts. They were real slow starting, and so they didn't perform to their potential.
No.
And then I think the Michigan game was an ultimate slap in hey, you guys are way better than what you're playing. And then that you alluded to the 3-hour.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to. Did you have an opinion on why they turned it around?
Well, I think you hear Ryan Day. He had 3 goals: beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, national championship.
Yeah.
Now that you only have one of those left, and you lost XX, and you only have one more left.
Your focus was
They have
there.
nothing to lose. They're playing with nothing to lose.
Yeah.
They're not on a perfect ride. They're not on a perfect schedule.
Right.
So,
And regardless of how talented you are,
yeah.
if you don't do the things right that you need to do in preparation if you don't execute the way it doesn't matter, you'll lose. You know what I mean? So I think there was probably a come to Jesus moment. I'm sure the players had saying, "Hey, we were way better than this."
There was a 3-hour meeting right after the Michigan game. Not directly after, but I think the next couple of days they just came together and aired out all their grievances. And you know, it's behind closed doors, so you don't know what was said.
Yeah.
But coming out of that, they came out playing for each other. If you look at the sidelines, look different.
Yeah, that's true.
They're celebrating together.
Yep. Pump the crowd out.
So that 3-hour meeting accomplished coming together. Now I learned just this morning that this is information that Caleb Downs, the great defensive back that we got from Alabama, that's only a sophomore.
Yep.
Is a very demanding player, and he was getting on the coaches for the defensive calls. You've heard this.
I seen that yesterday. Saban was talking about him.
The calls are too slow coming in, and Saban says, "I can attest to it because I had him for a year."
Yep.
So I know what it's like.
He's a high.
He's not high. He's not high. He's so good and so intelligent. They said the remark was made that he's like the smartest defensive player in the country in college ball. He's the smartest one.
Yeah.
And they said, so he's so far advanced that he wants that call made so that he can determine where players need to
get
go.
himself in a situation.
And tell because he's the quarterback of the secondary.
He's the captain.
Okay.
Even though Simon, they say he's the captain, I really think Downs is.
Simon's on this second level, though.
Yeah.
Simon is more of a captain on the second level. Downs was the captain of the secondary itself.
Mm-hmm.
And, man, what? Jack Schroyer?
I mean, they stepped up.
Where's their play been all year long?
Well, that's what I was going to talk about earlier.
Ransom?
Remember when they talked about, and they made a point that this is going to be a long season. Long season. So I'm sure somehow in the NFL does a great job somehow of keeping these guys' mentalities of, hey, this is going to be a long season.
Management.
We can't go out full blast for the first 10 games, balls to the wall.
That's what Ryan Day did.
And Ryan Day knew that this team was going to have to face us 15, 16
He admitted to
in the
it.
NFL.
He admitted to managing the players for a lengthy season.
They just played different.
He was saying 17 possible games. 17 games.
Yeah,
So he managed that, and it cost him, I think. That it cost him in the Michigan game of managing things like he did and being too uptight, afraid to lose.
Yeah.
Because the outside pressure was so strong that, hey, Ryan Day's going to get fired. And then what I think helped them galvanize them into the team that they're right now, they're a force.
Yeah.
And I don't see it changing, is the fact that they attacked their coach's family. His daughters were getting death threats.
Yep.
And that ain't cool.
No.
That is not cool. You can get mad at Ryan Day for his coaching abilities all you want.
Sure.
But there's a line you don't cross, and that's mess with somebody's family.
Right.
And even Saban's seen it. Saban sees how bad it is right now.
He said the Ohio State fanatical fans need, what did he say?
Therapist.
Yeah, they need therapy, he said. You guys need therapy.
If someone like Saban sees it,
Yeah. Well, I just think it's our nation as a whole.
Yeah, I don't think it's inclusive to Ohio State. I just think theirs is more noticed.
Yeah.
what did you see different this matchup compared to the matchup they had earlier? What I saw was Smith was, what was it, middle of the year, 6 games in.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be from, to me,
When they played Oregon? No, it was closer to the beginning of the season. It was like second or third game.
Yeah, they played a bunch of cream puffs.
We played in Oregon
Fourth game.
early in the season.
Yeah.
So I saw Smith go from being a freshman to being a
More experience.
more junior to senior kind of experience. So
Yeah, I get you. More experience, Jim.
I
agree with
I'm gonna
that.
go back to the line. I think the line played so much better than the first time.
The line had time to gel because they've had suffered injuries, so it did get better. And they took it personal. There was a lot. So all this stuff came out of that 3-hour meeting where guys were airing their grievances out, saying, you know, what's been going on. And the more information I hear, you can understand. You can start to understand then how important it was for them to do that.
So what's Texas got to do to stop Ohio State's offense? Because right now that's the question.
Pressure Howard. you got to bring the pressure. If I'm Texas, I'm putting Howard in uncomfortable positions. I'm blitzing as much as possible, and I'm making him guess on which side, where the blitzes are coming from. I'm going to show blitz, drop back and pass coverage. I'm going to show zone, and then I'm going to go to man and blitz. I think if you make Howard uncomfortable, he's valuable. He'll make some mistakes, and that's any quarterback in college football. But I think that's going to be Texas's. They're going to have to shut down Jeremiah Smith, and they're going to have to make Howard feel uncomfortable, and they're still going to have to account for the running game, because if they hone in on shut down Jeremiah Smith, you got two backs that are just explosive. But again, that comes down to the offensive line. You can't run where there aren't holes. So again, that battle up front is going to be.
So you think they're going to disguise a lot of their defense at first?
I mean, if I was coaching against an 8th grade Ohio State and I was the 8th grade Texas team, whatever, that's what I would try. We try to, as much as you can.
And Oregon didn't do that. I don't think Oregon made any much adjustments, did they?
I felt like Oregon was playing with their backs against the wall right after that first touchdown.
You are right, Ryan.
I think they came out punching right in the mouth.
They played Akron week 1.
I think it was like week 4 or something.
Western Michigan week 2, Marshall week 3, Michigan State week 4, week 5 was Iowa, week 6 was Oregon.
So
you're definitely right. I thought it was a lot sooner than that, but you're right.
Still, we're at what? Week 14?
Yeah.
So Smith's had 14 minus 6.
Well, they're 13-2 now,
Is
so
what?
that's 15.
And now you take a high school kid.
This is week 16 coming up, because they would have had 17 games had they had played in the Big Ten championship game.
Oh, okay.
Because that's what Ryan Day said. They
We're going to be 16.
they prepared for a 17-week season.
So you got a young Jeremiah Smith in high school, right? Break down high school film.
He's only
A
18.
little bit of stuff.
Still.
But then you go to college, and you break down film, and you get coached up at an Ohio State level. I think that over time, week after week after week, dissecting yourself on film, having the coaches coach up the specific areas where you need to fine tune your game. And I think you just become you go from a Honda Civic to a Lamborghini, and not taking anything away from the high school coaches. I also think of your maturity level as depending on who you're around and the types of individuals you're around. You get to call a Division I program like Ohio State, and you're around thoroughbreds, and so you do what thoroughbreds do. So I think just his playing level, his preparation level, everyone on that team, I'm sure, is escalated. So it goes down to perfecting his game a little bit more, and I think longer in the season, it's proven that he's like, okay, hey, maybe if I work this guy inside a little bit more on this route, I'll get better separation or whatever. Fine-tuning that game aspect too, I think is a huge thing for his growth. So you mix that with that ability and then the football knowledge. It's awesome.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see what happens at Texas. What about Notre Dame and Georgia? What did you think of that game last night?
Notre Dame came out and I think took care of business.
Mhm.
They took the lead and didn't let go.
Now, Dad was excited that Notre Dame won because he thinks we have a better chance of beating Notre Dame.
Ohio State, they are
than we
later
do at Georgia.
to be either. The reason Georgia was ineffective yesterday was because of their quarterback.
Yeah, I think so too.
They have a rookie quarterback that had minimal experience, and it hurt him. And with his inexperience, it showed up in a big game like yesterday's game. And it sucks. But as far as defense goes, in my opinion, the edge goes to Georgia's defense.
That's what I thought.
So I'm glad that we're not facing that. I'd rather possibly facing that. I'd rather face a Notre Dame possibly in the finals than I would.
If they beat Penn State. I think that sets Penn State up,
It's going to be a good game.
to be honest with you.
Yeah, what a great national championship for the Big Ten if it's Penn State and Ohio State in the national championship.
See what happens, but there's a lot of Catholics out there.
Would that make
There's a lot of money.
Would that make the playoffs and the committee and the whole college football season like not fun to watch?
No, I just think
Big Ten's made
the
it.
committee's going to have to reevaluate some things.
They're going to have to readjust.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about they're going to have to readjust.
Figure out a way to scoring these teams a little bit different.
The seeding was really bad.
Yeah.
If you win your conference, you get in the dance. You get a seat.
Yeah, because you want to
But you don't get that automatic buy. I think it goes to your rankings.
You want to make
top
a conference
12 teams.
championship something to be aspired for,
Yeah.
because if not, if you devalue that at some point, then it's...
We got to put more value in your ranking because they go by strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that as you come in ranked, that's your seeding.
That's true.
Now it worked out. Oregon was the number 1 seed, and they were also the number 1 team in the nation. But Ohio State was definitely not a number 8. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, good
They're
point.
not a number 8.
They weren't a number 8,
No.
so they did Oregon a disservice by having to play
Right.
Ohio State as early as they did.
You know what? And I tell you, I learned something about Dan Lanning, the coach for Oregon. He's got class.
He does.
He came out and said, "Hey, I'm not making no excuses. You know, we're not going to use that as an excuse that we shouldn't have had to play Ohio State until the finals or something like that." He said, "We faced the opponent that's put in front of us, and that's up to us to win that game." And we didn't. He said they played better than we did today. They did more than we did.
Wow, yeah, I think...
They weren't prepared or they were prepared better than I prepared on my team.
Yeah, he's
Just first class, dude.
He said our staff just didn't prepare
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
Taking the blame.
Like he should.
Well, you got to accept ownership.
Yeah.
You got to take ownership of
So
it.
yeah, I gained a lot of respect for it.
I gained a lot of respect for the whole college football off the field stuff this year with the interviews and the athletes. I think Jesus stuck out to me more this bowl season than ever before. I think that,
I mentioned that.
San Diego State's coach isn't that who? Am I right on that? No, Boise State.
Boise State's coach.
Fantastic human being. Players.
We should have not had a bye.
Yeah.
Arizona State should not have had a bye. So those 2 seedings that they got those definitely will be reevaluated.
Yeah.
They should have got in, but they weren't part of the top 4 best teams in the nation.
No, and I wasn't even addressing that. I was talking.
I know.
about
You're talking about the quality of the coaches and the
Yeah, well, just in general, Jesus has been a lot
more relevant
more evident
in college football.
up front.
Yeah.
Even at Ohio State. Well,
Yeah.
Howard, and obviously we know all their
Henderson.
Henderson and all that stuff. I thought the sign language thing by Henderson against Tennessee was awesome. The sign language for Jesus loves you. I think that kind of conversation all around college football has improved the overall image and experience.
It's more acceptable.
Besides the fights.
Doesn't it seem
Outside-
more acceptable?
I feel that it definitely has the conversation more so than it's had before, because people are giving more credit to Jesus Christ, which in a time of our world right now with these terrorist attacks, we don't know what the future holds, right? I think that it's even more comforting to see that out front.
It's more. It seems to be more acceptable. Is that the right term?
Well,
To be out in the open with your faith.
I
When I grew up in my era, just so you guys understand, in my era, you were a Bible thumper if you was open about your faith. So you was really like selective on when you let your faith show.
when you shared it,
Yeah. And so I had to grow in that area, but you were considered weak on a football team if you showed your soft side. You know what I mean? You always had to be tough. So it wasn't as acceptable for a football player to show his faith. Where today, these kids just keep doing it. I look at that as like he was raised right. That kid was raised around Jesus.
Well, one of Boise State's players at the end of the game thanked his coach because he didn't know God until he got to it.
Isn't that something?
And so he thanked his coach not for making him a better football player, not for getting him in a bowl game and a college football playoff,
Making him Christian.
but introducing him to God.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's encouraging because if you watch the news and you see, I mean, I don't really watch the news, but I read, you see stuff all the time, and it's a scary time to be alive, to be alive and to be raising kids, let alone, it's just nice to hear those messages through the dark.
Yeah. Did you see the picture going around of Scatterboo after the game? Texas player and him prayed together after.
Yeah, I saw it.
I thought it was
I saw that during the game. The camera went to it.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool too.
Tess Johnson said something to Howard after the game.
Your mom made a comment about that.
Mhm.
That left an impression on her as well.
You start to see these big name players start to do it, and
Yeah,
kids look up to them.
a little bit more, less apprehensive. You know what I mean? Less afraid to come forward with it. So I just, but I've noticed that on a whole with college football. So
I mean, even Mahomes does it. Mahomes prays before every game.
yeah, well, yeah, and you see those things in the NFL too. But I feel like it's been a little bit more prominent in college football here recently, which is it's good for us.
It is.
You know?
Something for you to keep your eye on. One of the things that I didn't see out of Jeremiah was his faith. I didn't see anything on his faith when he spoke. Now, keep in mind, he's only 18 years old, and here he is after a huge win in the Rose Bowl,
Yeah.
being interviewed by a sideline reporter that's famous, Hallie Rowe,
Yes.
and he never gave any credit to the Lord, never mentioned the Lord, not doubting him for it, because I understand that he's still young, and he's 18, and he really doesn't, this is his first experience, he's not doesn't speak well yet in public.
Yeah.
He's getting better at it, I'm sure, by the end of the season, but come on, man, 18 years old.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say that.
So I'm pointing this out to you, let's see how he,
See if it influences.
Yeah.
Now, it's not always going to overflow, and
let's see
not everybody's going to receive it.
Let's see how he's affected by it.
But we don't know. He could already be leading about us.
He could be.
And that's goes to another thing too. There's people out there that have faith and don't.
More reserved.
Yeah, and are more reserved. One of the wisest things I've ever heard say was, "Go and spread the word of the gospel."
Yeah.
And if you have to, open your mouth.
Yeah.
So there are people that do it by action more than words. But I do think there is something to be said right now in this time in our life that more college football athletes are giving credit to God.
And I like it
Yeah.
because it's national. You're
Yeah.
getting to see it on national TV.
And they're not saying Jesus all the way,
Right.
death to you.
Yep.
I think that is a big diff. When you're talking about them, like when I see pro-Palestinian protests and things like that, I get human life. All human life is important and valued, but it's just a little different. But I didn't want to get us
No,
off
to keep.
of football too much.
No, I'm just saying, keep your eye out on that and see how
It'll
if
be
that
interesting
faith
to see if
eventually
he-
works its way out in the open. And
Or if he feels a little bit more comfortable talking.
yeah,
about it.
maybe he'll become a leader.
Yeah, maybe. And if not, everybody's got. That's another thing I learned in life is everybody has a role.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Everybody has different abilities.
You always got to have ditch diggers.
Yeah, you got to have a give back guy, right? On Friday night,
Yeah.
everybody has a role
Hey,
that you buy into.
who got penalized yesterday for not getting back? The Georgia team.
Oh my gosh!
That poor player. Did you see that?
Yeah,
You didn't pick up on that?
The internet is all over this kid.
This kid he drew a penalty because it was a long run.
He was running on sidelines along with his kid, with his player buddy. Like, yeah, go, 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 and got in the way of the official.
Got
And he
out.
got a sideline penalty out of it.
Kirby was over it.
Yeah, he was.
Yes.
That was the internet joke.
Yeah, that poor kid. Did you see him show the camera go and found him, and he was off by himself, leaning up against this
If you're a
crate.
football guy, we've all been there at some point where you've gotten overtaken with emotion, and there's plenty of videos out there of myself running up and down the sideline. So I think it's just a different, it's just a young thing, getting emotion against
Poor kid.
fun stuff.
He
So
probably won't be on the team next year.
maybe not.
Cost
Maybe-
them that long, right?
I don't know. Maybe they might even do something funny with it. Take a blow up of it or something, and post it all over. That's what I would do in the locker room. So let's get negative here for a second. What about the Cleveland Browns?
Looking forward to next year.
Yeah.
No, they